Sarah Maltby is one of the new crop of MHKs elected at the 2021 general election. One of two Manx Labour MHKs, Sarah, has taken up the social security role in Treasury. She's had a busy summer knocking on doors and finding out what her constituents in Douglas South are thinking.
I decided before the election that every summer I would be out and delivering my community newsletter to the constituents of Douglas South. I've kept to that promise. I did it last summer and I've done it again this summer. That's the intention, is to knock on every single door every summer to deliver my community newsletter to my constituents and just to give people an overview of what I'm trying to achieve, what I have achieved, and just maybe share a little bit of positivity because, it's difficult sometimes, I think, for people to actually know and to keep up with what their MHKs are up to. And so I think, one sure way of doing it is for me to actually knock on the door and say, I'm here if you need me, and this is my newsletter. So that's what I've done.
So what are the people saying? What are the concerns that you're getting? What would you say the key themes are?
It's a real mixed bag. You can go from hedges and potholes right up to people who have waited 2 years for an appointment for quite a serious medical condition, or right up to talking to you about government spending and the concerns about the future for the younger people on the Isle of Man and housing, obviously in particular. So, you really can, it's a real huge scope. When you knock on that door, you do not know what is behind it. And I think that's one of the reasons why some people choose not to go out and do this every summer. I can see why. But for me, it's the most important thing to do because it's that face-to-face interaction with somebody, and they will tell you exactly how they're feeling at that time, or they will make an appointment and you'll come back and you'll have that conversation with people. But, some things are really easy to fix, like showing people how to use the reporter apps for the DOI or for the Douglas Borough Council, or reminding people there's MCALs, just telling people that these things exist. You don't have to suffer. You don't need to be upset about these things. You can report it yourself, but quite often they see you as the person who's going to take that on for them, and I'm happy to do so. You can't deliver 3,000 newsletters to houses and then not expect to get 3,000 emails in return. So yeah, it's a huge commitment, but it's really important for me that I do it.
And in terms of government performance, I mean, where would you say we are on a scale of 1 to 10? Where are the public at the moment?
For their confidence in government, I think it's mixed. When you speak to people and they share their feelings with you, if they are quite angry, you're trying to get to the bottom. For me anyway, I try to get to the bottom of where that anger's coming from. Is it they're just angry because they're angry, or are they angry because of something in particular? And quite often, once you have that conversation, it's kind of helping people to maybe understand where the decision maybe came from, why I voted in a certain way, or perhaps trying to just sort of clear up some things that maybe people have got mixed up with. This is our life. I live and breathe politics on the Isle of Man, whereas everybody else who's within my constituency isn't. They're busy with their daily lives, with their families, with their work, with their own pressures. So it's not 100%. You can understand why people don't know exactly what's happening. They kind of just pick up on things from the radio or from talking to people or the bus. So you can. It's a really helpful opportunity to be able to say, well, actually, that's not quite right. Maybe I could explain that to you a little bit better and try and help you understand with that. And people do appreciate that. And I think that kind of then makes people sort of step back and say, okay, I didn't realise that. Now that I do know that information, I can see why you're having the difficult decisions that you are having to deal with at the moment.
That's why we elect politicians every 5 years. We trust you. Of the various candidates, you're the ones we trust. Now crack on and sort these really complex problems out. And often enough in politics, it's much more complex than a simple black and white situation, isn't it?
Absolutely. I kind of had an idea of what I was getting involved in. I wasn't new to this world, and I knew how it would feel to be in a position of huge responsibility, and I didn't expect to be brought into Treasury my first term. To be quite honest, I went from managing a household budget to managing the nation's budget, being part of that team.
It's a big role in Treasury, isn't it?
Really, really big role. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know all the answers to all of Treasury's pressures. You've got to stay focused. I've been given Social Security as my delegation, and that's where I put a lot of my effort and time into. You've got to hope when you look around the chamber in Tynwald that the other members are doing the same thing, that they are also focused within their department on the things that they can actually affect change within. It's kind of, you've got to trust one another, I feel, as best you can. Maybe I'm too trusting. I believe that people are all working as hard as I am, but sometimes you look back and you think, why are we not seeing change quicker? Because I'm seeing change within social security, and I'm happy to share that with people, but it sometimes feels like you kind of one step forward, two steps back on things. But I think if you stay focused, stay true to yourself, stay principled, and that's what my constituents expect of me, and they wouldn't expect anything else, and they wouldn't expect me to try and sit here and claim to be some kind of expert. I've only been in the job 2 years, and I think it's that honesty and that openness to say, actually, I'm here to learn, and I need to learn in order to ensure that I leave my position in a better place than when I found it.
And it is a team effort too, isn't it? Being in government or being in Tynwald, you can't do it all by yourself. In your case, you have a party member, so there's two of you out of the 32 elected or vaguely elected members of Tynwald. But you do have to rely on colleagues to pull their weight and do particular roles, particular jobs, don't you?
Yeah, one of the criticisms that you do hear on the doorstep is that we've got too many MHKs, and I showed them the list of responsibilities that I have, and I think, well, actually, we could do with actually a couple of other people doing a few more things, because it's not always fairly distributed. And I think the more you do, the more you get given to do. And I think when you show that you've proved yourself that you can achieve outcomes that are within the government policy or whatever it might be, or within your department, or you've shown that you've been able to help constituents and you've kind of proved that you are a doer, then you kind of get asked to do more things. So that I prefer to be busy. I prefer to be able to do the best. I only have 5 years in this position. I would never ever assume that I'd be re-elected. You can work all the hours and you can still maybe lose your seat after 5-year term. So it's never a given that you're going to be re-elected. So I work as hard as I can. I do put too much pressure on myself, probably. I think when I get to the end of this 5-year term, I will be standing again. It's just an early declaration.
Gosh.
They are.
3 years before.
3 years in advance. No, but I will be standing again. I love this position and this job that I have. It's a huge amount of work, a huge pressure, but show me a job that doesn't have pressures. This could affect the future of the Isle of Man, but if there was one person who was so passionate about the future of the Isle of Man, then it is me. So I feel like this is the job that I'm supposed to be doing.
In terms of that then, you're 2 years into your 5-year term. You've produced a manifesto, and obviously that's part of the reason people chose to vote for you. What of those manifesto commitments are the ones that you have been working on, or perhaps the ones that you've managed to achieve?
Well, putting social policy right at the very heart of government has been a real challenge, actually. I didn't realise how difficult it was going to be. I thought I'd walk in and everybody be saying the same as me, but actually when you faced the numbers and how much social policy costs to deliver, then you realise just how difficult this job is. But I have been able to make effective change within social security. We have changed regulations. We've made life easier for people. I feel that the decisions that I've made within the social security division by moving towards an online platform, so it's more accessible for people and it's taken away some of the complexities. One of the officers said to me when I first started, "Oh, Mrs. Maltby, you do realise that we're talking about people here. The more simple you make it, the more complex it tends to become." And the real truth in that, we are talking about people and people are very complex. So it is a real balance. But I do feel like if you move slowly and steadily forward, it's better than standing still. Now, one of the things I've learned over the last 2 years is the Tynwald order paper. At the end of the Tynwald order paper, that's when you see the orders, and that's where you see what social security or Treasury or DOI or DEFRA, what legislation they're actually changing, what regulations are going to change, and that's the real crunch of it. That's the bit that's going to actually impact and change people. Life possibly it's maybe going to be where they have to pay more for their licences as well. That's the real heart of the matter. But it's always right at the very end of Tynwald, and it's a time where people are kind of, trying to keep people's attention, and the minister stands and delivers the change. I stand and second it, but actually that 3 minutes where that conversation, that discussion is happening, has been like a year's piece of work for just that 3 minutes of the Tynwald sitting.
And it's often a very dry part of the Tynwald
It's
proceeding,
right at the very
it?
end, And it's I don't know what you could do about changing that, but I don't think that's probably really a priority. But that's really the bit that is going to, because the rest of Tynwald is very important, but it's about policy, discussion, debates. Obviously, there's the big money votes as well. But, really it's that bit at the end where, and this is what we're going to do, and do you all agree with that? And it's that part that I kind of stand up and second something that's actually took a year's worth of work, not just on my behalf, but the officers, the people in the background. And that's the bit when I meet with my directors down at Social Security. They'll say, how did it go? Was it well received? Was it any questions? And you think, well, yeah, actually it was just went through, and you think, gosh, that's been such a lot of work, and we prepared so much for anything that might be asked of us, and it's kind of just
and there is
accepted
that
sometimes.
There is that sort of approach to politics. Doing the right thing and doing good things is what's expected of you. Mm-hmm. There's almost a kind of a churlishness amongst the public in saying, well, of course you should be doing that. That's the right thing to do. What about such and such, and why haven't you got on with this? You'd like to think, anyway, in relation to the orders and regulations at the end of the Tynwald Order paper, the reason often they get effectively nodded through with very little comment is because people read the explanatory notes and memoranda and are convinced that actually this is the right thing to do and there's no need to comment. Perhaps sometimes some of your colleagues, maybe even yourself, that there is a need to say a little bit more in these Tynwald debates, just to say, actually, there's a load of work gone into this. This is really important, and these are the great things that are going to be achieved by it. Yeah,
no, I probably would agree with that. It's kind of making sure people really realise just what this means. I do find that I do kind of pick up on the maintenance issues. I do pick up on the bits that really aren't sexy or flashy, and I can see why they wouldn't maybe catch people's attention all the time, because, of course, they're things that we expect to see of you, but nobody else is doing it. I'm picking these things up and I'm working on it, and trying to make things that you actually wouldn't believe still were normal practice, changing these things, because it's been talked about for years that we should make Social Security, for example, less complex. We should make the forms easy to understand, but it's took until now to actually see that is going to happen. There's no way I'm going to leave my position in the way that I picked it up on. It really definitely needed to be addressed, and it is being addressed, and it's not probably going to be newsworthy, but do you know what, it's going to make life easier for people, and if that's one thing I've achieved over this last 2 years, it's certainly that.
I seem to remember possibly before I was old enough to vote, hearing on Manx radio various politicians talking about computers are the future. This is going to be the answer. It's going to make life so much simpler for everybody. And we're still working on it. And you kind of wonder, the amount of form filling and everything that we end up having to do seems to be still very, very excessive.
Yeah, I'd agree with that to a certain extent. You do have to remember, though, when you are delivering a benefit or an allowance, this is taxpayers' money generally. That people have paid into a system, and you have to be respectful of the fact that not everybody will take from the system at any point, but we all pay into it. So you need to ensure that there are safeguards in place, there is good governance in place, so you can't make it so simple that the money just flows out, because goodness, it'll be gone within a very short amount of time. So you do need to be careful. There is a definite balance about making sure that you are accessible, easy to deal with, but at the same time that you have got those protections in place. We are talking about the public purse here, and that's something that's never left me. When I first joined Treasury and the first paper I was presented, and I seen that the bid was for £1 million, I couldn't believe my eyes. These numbers I've only ever seen in a phone book, and now they are in front of me, and I've got to make a decision I have to sit and consider and take in this information now. Phil, you know, I kind of get out around the island, so I don't just rely on what I'm presented in a Treasury board meeting. I kind of try to make myself as available as possible, and I want to listen to other viewpoints and not just accept the one viewpoint I'm given perhaps in a paper. I think I owe that to my constituents. Douglas South is where my heart is at, but I'm a national politician, and if it's going to discuss national issues within Tynwald, then I'm going to go around the island to actually hear what is being said by the people, because ultimately, you talked about my manifesto before, I have in my manifesto putting people first, and that is where I'll always be. Before I became a politician, I was a carer. I worked in a school. I didn't have some fancy high-flying job. You know, I was with the people all day, every day, and that's where I find myself most comfortable now. And you know, it might sound cliche, and people might think, well, that's, you know, of course she's going to say that, but I really do mean it. And I think when I'm on the doorstep with people and they invite me into their home, they share their stories with me, I feel a connection with that person. Government and parliamentary work is really exciting. It's hard, but it is really exciting. You feel like you are doing something, you are affecting change, I feel like we are achieving something, but it can be hard work, you know, it can be relentless sometimes. You don't sleep properly. You feel like you've got your brain is just whizzing constantly with these numbers and this information, and you're kind of not too sure who you can share or talk to because some of it's very confidential. And when you're on the doorstep, it's so much, it's just raw, it's just you and another person, and it's really nice to be out in the fresh air and having those conversations, and it takes you back to actually the reason why you stood in the first place, and it's because I want to put people first, and people is where I get my motivation from.
And sometimes there's a view that if we paid politicians a bit more, we'd get better quality people representing us. That I mean, first of all, that's quite a savage remark to those who are elected, I think. But also, I think it misses the point. You know, we pay civil servants to help us generate policy and to come up with ideas. Your role as a politician is to not necessarily to come up with ideas. Great if you do, but it's more about interpreting how those ideas are actually going to impact on the public, isn't it?
Absolutely, and how it's going to land with people, because there's no use making policy if the person you're trying to affect that change from never actually feels any difference. You know, otherwise we're just talking and nothing's actually happening, and there's nothing more frustrating than 24 people stood in a room all talking great ideas, slapping each other on the back, when actually it's not the person who you hope to deliver this outcome from doesn't feel it, and I think that's ultimately why I feel we sometimes need to. It is easy to say, oh, politicians, they pay too much, and you know what do we see from them, because you can understand they like I said, they're busy with their own lives. You know, they don't really understand exactly what we do. I'll often knock on a door and they'll think that I'm here from the council, or they'll think that, you know, I'm here to talk to them about the recycling, or I'm here to take a survey of the pavements, or whatever it might be. And I'm saying, no, I'm in the government. You know, I'm your Tynwald member. I'm your MHK. And they look at me as if I have two heads, like, is it election time already? No, this is something I'm going to do every year. You know, they quite honestly don't believe that they would see their MHK on their doorstep, and that needs to change. I think it should be become the normal.
So 2 years in as a member of Treasury, we've got £150 million gap in finances. Well, we know that's not sustainable. Obviously, as a Labour Party person, I'm guessing you have views on taxation. How can we fill a £150 million gap in public finances?
We have to fill the gap, but we also have to look at what we're doing. So if it's not working, if people aren't receiving that effective change, if they're not feeling that they're being, the island isn't getting better for them, then why are we still pumping money into something that's not working? I think the best, as politicians, it's taking that decision to say, we're going to stop this, and we need to really think about what we're doing here, and not just continue to do.
Big, bold step to take, because people love new things, but they hate having things taken away from them.
I agree with that, but if you can show what you're replacing it with, and that it's getting that balance. I think it's about getting that balance. Communication, quite honestly. If you bring people along with you and you tell them and explain what's happening in a way that's understandable and not just a way that you think sounds right, and I think that's the benefit of going and speaking to people on the doorstep. You get to learn how the message comes down the line, and you think, wow, I thought that message was really clear, but clearly it's certainly not. It's totally not landed correctly. But no, the gap is going to be a huge challenge, but it's not going to be something that we're going to fix overnight. And I think if you try to do something that's to fix it overnight, knee-jerk, then you're going to end up in a worse position than what you started. We are politicians who are elected for 5-year terms. That's part of the problem. You need somebody who's got a 10-year, 15-year vision rather than looking for their term and to make themselves, the legend that fixed the problem. That's not really going to help. You need to realise that you're part of this journey. I'm sorry to say that. It sounds, it's an awful way to describe it, but you are part of this, and you're not making it better just for your 5-year term. You've got to think about, well, I have 2 children. I think about my 2 children and what will the island look like in 10, 15 years time? What's going to attract my daughter Ivy back to the Isle of Man if she ever goes to university? How am I going to make this place the place that she wants to settle in? I went to university, I went to Chester, and I loved it, but I was ready to come home. I'm a home bird. Not everybody's like that on the island. We have people who want to go and travel and see the world, and good for them. I'm really, really pleased. But then when they have got that experience, please come back, because, this island is a safe place. It's a really lovely place. The constituents I talk to who aren't interested in politics, who are happy with where they live, who don't understand all the fuss, and they'll say, we are so lucky to live on this island, and we do ourselves down sometimes. Yeah, we do have problems, don't get me wrong, but show me a place in the world that doesn't, it doesn't mean that negates that problem, but we have so many positives as well. And the way to attract people here is to talk about those things that are attractive and good about the island, and hopefully attract those skills and those skilled people to us, because then they can work with us to be able to make the island more secure for the future. And that's ultimately the ultimate aim, is to do that.
Very brief answer then, because we are running towards the end of the programme. 3 years left. What's the one thing that you want to achieve?
Oh gosh, the one thing I want to achieve, well, get social security online so that you can apply for benefits and allowances. That's not just going to help people who are vulnerable, but it's going to help people who are starting their families. It's going to help people who are looking to for that support at the time, a stepping stone, but also for the childcare strategy. I really, really, really want to see the childcare strategy get delivered within this 3 years. We're not going to get all of it delivered because it's a huge piece of work, but I really want to see some change, of real positive change there. I think there's so many good things that can come out of this 5 years, and I really want to be a part of that part of it. And like I said, the childcare strategy would be something that I really want to see get to the stage where we can actually deliver it. I also want to see the Housing and Communities Board showing us what they were set up for in the first place. That was a real good selling point of the new Chief Minister's package of support that he was going to put in place, and I was really, really excited about it. So I want to see that actually now come to fruition. I think if we don't see anything within the next year, I don't think we're going to see anything, to be honest, and I really want to see them some real good change from them. But there's loads of things, Phil, to be honest, but you do have to stay focused. You do have to be realistic about what you're going to actually achieve, because the worst thing you can do is overpromise and underdeliver. You need to hit that sweet spot where you actually do deliver, and you give people the confidence that you do what you say you're going to do. And I hope that I'm on the right track for that, but we'll find out in 3 years' time, won't we?
That was Sarah Maltby, MHK. She's certainly committed to delivering for her constituents. Do you value this sort of contact with your MHK, or do you think they need to focus on the big picture stuff? Don't forget, this programme is available as a podcast on Manx Radio's website. For now, though, I'm Phil Gorn. Gora Mayo. Thanks for listening.